Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Julia Talbot. I am here from the Department of Family and Support Services, joined by my awesome colleagues, Lisa Rodriguez, Mark Sanders, and Chris Dennis, to discuss the Domestic Worker Relief Fund RFP and how to make an application about that program itself and how to make an application for it. Just a little housekeeping. Due to the volume of participants, we're going to have everybody on mute. We ask that if you have questions, to please put them into the questions box, where we'll be trying to answer some of the questions along the way, but we'll also be stopping at the end of the presentation about the actual application itself to just go through some of the questions that we have, and then again at the end of the presentation. If you're having any technical issues, please let us know about your technical issues also in the questions box. You can see here that the agenda is about the first part of this presentation is going to cover the RFP, the scope, the program requirements, all of those kinds of things. And then we're going to transition to the more administrative and technical aspects of making an application in the City of Chicago's e-procurement system. And then we'll have questions. I'd like to introduce now Elisa to start us off. Elisa?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elisa Rodriguez, Managing Deputy Commissioner at DFSS. I want to thank you for joining the webinar today to learn more about the Domestic Relief Fund. As outlined in the RFP, the City of Chicago has authorized $4.3 million in cash assistance to support domestic workers within the Chicago Recovery Plan. And this will allow for a one-time cash payment for between 8,000 and 8,500 domestic workers. The purpose of the fund is so that we can reach domestic workers who were hard hit by COVID. And this is so that they can support their path to greater economic stability. We want to make sure that we're supporting those that were most impacted, and this fund has been created to do just that. The pilot is also intended to serve as a demonstration of the effectiveness of cash assistance within the broader portfolio of safety net benefits. Our hope is to learn a lot from all of these cash assistance programs so that we can continue and continue to advocate for more of these types of programs. Next slide. The Domestic Worker Relief Fund, as well as all these other cash assistance fund, really provides the City of Chicago with a unique opportunity to envision and test a system that reduces barriers to engagement, enrollment, and the receipt of benefits. And the goal is to empower individuals to use resources to meet their greatest needs. For the Chicago Domestic Worker Fund, we've identified 4 goals that we would like to be able to achieve. 1, to provide financial relief to those impacted hardest by COVID. 2nd, to improve the residents' well-being. We want to make sure that we're addressing their financial stability, their health, and their well-being, and that of their family. 3rd, to transform the city's human services, to improve the city's capacity to create and deliver impactful, inclusive, people-centered, anti-poverty programs that build on existing safety nets. And 4th, to build a field of practice. This will allow and enable policymakers and advocates across local, state, and federal levels to learn from our pilot, which is the largest program in its reach for the U.S. today. On this next slide, you will see the City of Chicago's APR Investments. The city has proposed these investments to support an equitable recovery based on a whole government response to community safety, urgent assistance to families in need, access to reliable city services, and a wide set of economic opportunities, which include programming for mental health services, violence prevention, affordable housing, youth services, homelessness, arts, and culture. The city's investments seek to have a broad range of anticipated strategic impacts, and to learn more, we encourage you to visit www.chicago.gov/recovery plan. So we're here today to talk about the $4.8 million Domestic Worker Relief Fund, which is a one-time $500 subsidy to those who qualify. I also wanted to talk about other opportunities. We also released an RFP for $10.7 million, which is called the Chicago Resiliency Fund 2.0. This fund is targeted towards households that were excluded from federal stimulus support, and it's also a one-time $500 support. The release of this application occurred on February 22nd, and responses are due back March 15th. For each fund, DFSS will be seeking a program administrator to manage all of the activities, which include outreach, applications, verification, and payment distributions. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Mark Sanders, to talk about the scope review.
The Department of Family and Support Services seeks proposals from agencies to perform the 5 program components below. We want someone to manage program management and coordination, specifically the technology platform that will be used to receive applications and administer and manage the process, the enrollment and selection process. We want support with outreach and engagement, application verification, payment distribution, and management, as I mentioned. The respondent will have the resources and experience needed to perform these overall components. Next slide. More specifically, the role of the program administrator is to build and execute the processes and infrastructure and to manage the people resources required to enable successful delivery of the pilot program. The primary objectives of the program administrator are to design and manage tech-enabled processes for application, selection, onboarding, and ongoing program communications, and support that minimize participant burden and deliver a positive, empowering experience. Streamline and execute high-quality, responsive communication to all participants throughout the program experience, and manage timely and accurate data collection and payment disbursement activity. We would like the administrator to oversee the entire process, start to finish, and to make sure that this process does not cause undue burden on the participants that we want to engage. Next slide. So the focus population for this program is domestic workers. And program eligibility will be based on the applicant's current or previous, their past 12 months employment as a domestic worker. This includes how much they made as the household income, as well as any disclosure of any economic hardship they've experienced as a result of COVID-19. Specific thresholds and proof of eligibility is going to be based on federal Treasury guidelines, and DFSS will finalize along with the program administrator what those specific details will be. Domestic worker is defined as a person whose primary duties include housekeeping, house cleaning, home management, nanny services, including child care, child monitoring, caregiving, personal care, or home health services for elderly persons or persons with illnesses, injuries, or disabilities who require assistance in caring for themselves. Laundering, cooking, companion services, chauffeuring, and other household services to members of households or their guests in or about a private home or residence or any other location where the domestic work is performed. Our expected reach. DFSS estimates that the following volume of applications and program participation to inform and this is to inform your proposal. We're expecting to deliver a maximum of 8,500. We're expecting to deliver $500 in one-time cash payment assistance to a maximum of 8,500 selected households. We expect over 10,000 applications to the program. However, from that pool, we will select 8,500 participants. Contract milestones. The RFP was released on February 22nd. The application is due on March 11th. From there, we will make decisions regarding who the program administrator will be. And within 2 weeks of that selection, we want to start working with you to identify the service blueprint, finalize that, and then also finalize the requirements for the CRM. By April 15th, we would like the application to go live. And by May 30th, we expect first payments to begin. So I'll go through that again. So March 11th, applications are due. And within that time frame, within 2 weeks, we will select a program administrator. And then immediately we expect that the program administrator will begin the process of designing the program and customizing the CRM so that we can make sure applications go live on April 15th. Next slide. Performance goals and outcomes for the program. Our goal is to reach the hardest hit focus populations and deliver a positive experience for our participants. These are the top objectives. And we want to track progress toward achieving the outcomes and goals of this program through these 4 bullets, but we may have additional metrics that we plan to use. But we're starting with the percentage and number of applications successfully submitted. And this will be a proxy for how difficult it was for applicants to apply. Program uptake, which is the percentage of approved applicants who successfully enrolled. Percentage and number of participants successfully enrolled and received their one-time payment, and reported participant satisfaction. Those will be the metrics that we use to track our progress toward our goals. Selection criteria. DFSS seeks respondents that demonstrate a clear understanding of the focus population and their strengths, assets, needs, and challenges. Expertise working with the focus population and has relevant capabilities and/or infrastructure needed to serve these groups. A commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and access. Leadership that reflects and engages the diverse people of the communities we hope to serve with this program. Next slide. DFSS seeks respondents that have qualified staff, as well as a staffing pattern that addresses all the required service components. Strategy to hire any new staff in a timely manner. Adequate systems and processes to support monitoring the program expenditures and fiscal controls. The ability to provide and maintain a technology platform that can house key public-facing program details and provide critical information optimized for broad usability. The existing systems must evidence the ability for multi-channel program communications, CRM, program application, and data collection and management that can be quickly customized to support the fund or IT personnel capable of customizing and utilizing the National Domestic Workers Alliance technology available via open source. Demonstrated experience in collecting, storing, protecting, managing, and analyzing a secure CRM system containing personal identifying information and other sensitive information. Next slide. We also seek respondents that have demonstrated evidence of strong past performance achieving these goals, our desired outcome goals that we discussed previously. Experience using data to inform and improve its services, practices, and the relevant systems and processes needed to track and report performance on program outcomes in order to be data-driven. We would like our respondents to demonstrate the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program and demonstrate reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human resources. The proposed budget must support the proposed scope of work and work plan. Attachments. So throughout the proposal, you'll be responding to different questions, but we would also like for you to include these attachments. Be sure to attach reports, studies, or other documentation that shows your performance towards reaching program goals that you've, anything that can demonstrate results and accomplishments that suggest that you've done this work before and you'd be able to do it again within this environment in setting. And within this new target population. Be sure to attach resumes for key staff that are overseeing the program, attach job descriptions for key positions that you need to fill, and to attach your organization's budget and budget narrative detailing the program, how it would support the program scope and work plan. And for this slide, I will turn it to, no, I'm still working. Budget or cost proposal. The term of the contract that will be executed under this RFP will be from March 23rd, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. We anticipate funding one agency through this proposal. The maximum award will be $4.3 million for the entire term of the project. $4.1 million is a pass-through grant, which will be provided to the participants in compliance with the program requirements, and up to $240,000 of the award can be used for administrative costs. There is no match requirement. We are asking that you submit one budget for the year, 12 months of services, and we ask that you are thoughtful and inclusive in developing the budget. Make sure that you're applying for your program's actual costs. And if you are leveraging other resources to cover those costs, please outline that in your budget and in your responses. Use the budget narrative to document how and why your proposed costs were determined, and use the reasonable cost question on the application to discuss how your proposed costs are realistic and demonstrate how you'll be able to support the work that's required for this program. Finally, the city is actively developing the details of its new advanced policy for delegate agencies. This is a new process that we are finalizing, and details of this policy will be shared as an amendment prior to the RFP's application due date. All new information concerning advances as it impacts this RFP will be communicated via this the amendment process. As mentioned, applications are due on March 11, 2022 at 12 noon. And I will pass it to Julia.
I'd like to pause and just take a moment to see if there are any questions. You'll have questions, of course, that you can ask at the end of the presentation as well about anything at all. But if there are any kind of outstanding questions at this point that anybody would like to raise. Other than that, we're going to go on. I'm going to go on and just talk about the e-procurement platform that the city uses to accept all of its applications for its RFPs and how to navigate that most successfully. And then we're going to go through a few common operations that you'll have to do in that platform as part of the application process. But I wanted to just see if there are questions. This is always
Julia?
Yes?
There are a couple people with their hands raised. I'm not seeing any questions in the box, but in the chat box. But
yes, as we maybe those were late people. We ask that you put all of your questions into the chat box or into the questions box. We like to be able to have a written record of what people are asking. So why don't we take a minute for you to put those questions, if you have your hands raised. Let's see, one raised hand, two, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Here's a question. Thank you. So can we talk more about the NDWA requirements? That's the National Domestic Worker Association requirement, I believe. And then what documents will be required from the applicants, or will this be up to the delegate to determine?
With regard to the documents that will be required from the applicants, those are going to be finalized in part in cooperation with you, the program administrator, but there are some basic requirements for approval of income for the past 12 months, residency. There'll be different expectations that we'll need, but the actual documentation that is required will need to be finalized with the program administrator. There are some standard tools that we use in other programs that we may use for this program. However, again, we have to finalize that together with the program administrator.
Will this be a program that the undocumented community can access?
Yes.
Then also, do we have anything to say about the NDWA requirement? I believe that there is a link to what that requirement is more, in more depth in the RFP document itself. I don't know. Does anybody else have anything to add in regards to that question?
Yeah, I'm going to put a clarifying question for the person that asked that question, and we'll see if we can get to it about the NDWA.
While Chris is following up with that clarifying question, I might start kind of going forward just to talk a little bit about the selection and transition timeline. You are at the pre-proposal webinar. Thank you for coming. The due date to submit pre-proposal questions will be Friday, the close of business. Not Friday, I'm sorry, Monday, February 28th at the close of business. And really, as long as we get them before, you can 11:59 p.m. works for us. Close of business. Of course, the earlier the better, because it gives us a little bit more time. But other than that, please submit your questions. Applications will be due Friday, March 11th, 2022 at 12 noon, and that is a hard deadline, very hard deadline. We are unable, and I'll say this probably, once per slide for the next 3 slides, we are unable to accept late applications. The only way we can accept a late application is to repost the entire RFP, throw out the prior applications, make everybody reapply. So unless we do a re-release, chances are there is really no way to get your application in after that hard deadline. The program period, as you can see, very short turnaround time. The program period we're expecting to launch March 23rd, and Mark went through what happens after that previous, a few slides back. So it's we're hitting the ground running. In terms of looking to doing an application in the e-procurement platform, which is what everybody uses to make applications to the City of Chicago, you will need to register into iSupplier if your organization has not done so before. iSupplier is the platform that potential vendors and current vendors use to access the e-procurement system. To make the application to get an iSupplier account, usually has a turnaround time of a few days. If you're dealing with anything with iSupplier and procurement, I highly advise you to check your spam filters if you're looking for a particular email or response. The stuff that is generated at e-procurement iSuppliers very frequently, even for those of us inside the city who work with it all the time, it's just the kind of email that just ends up in spam very easily. I also like to tell people, there's a RFP document that's attached to the application itself. I like to stress that you should review that narrative, the narrative section, review the whole document. I understand that they're dense, they're dense conceptual documents, but we do spend a certain amount of time putting all the information you really need to make a successful application into those documents. And they're a resource for you to use. So I always tell people to review the application, the RFP narrative and the application's questions closely. Remember that they align with the scopes and the selection criteria. So it's sort of a triangle. We develop the scope, we develop our application questions from the scope, we develop our selection criteria sort of triangulated between the scope and the application questions. And from the application and from that selection criteria, and the application questions, we develop our evaluation tools. I will say right now, we do not share our evaluation tools. That's private, what we use for scoring. Those are not available to the public. We don't share other people's, we don't share other people's responses. These are all questions that I have received. This is, your response is your private business, as is everybody else's, and those are not documents that get recirculated or shared. And the evaluation document is one that we also do not share to the public. You should, if you are finding yourself questioning a direction or having sort of a conceptual question on an application question, to really look at the RFP for guidance. Use that RFP for guidance in formulating your answer. The answers will be in there in terms of giving you an idea of what direction we're really looking to go in. Carefully review the selection criteria when you're doing your application questions, because they also, every application question directly relates to a selection criteria. And so that will also give you some direction and guidance. They're more sort of administratively. There's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. And so each response in the application is allotted 4,000 characters, which is about 2/3 of a single space page. E-procurement works best with the Internet Explorer browser, which really no one uses anymore. E-procurement works perfectly, wonderfully on every other browser I have ever tried it on. If you are having problems with your computer getting along with e-procurement, it's glitchy or whatever, try it on Internet Explorer as kind of a last-ditch effort. One pro tip that I'm constantly running into myself is don't use the back button on your browser to navigate through e-procurement. When you do that, e-procurement will keep working, but it will stop saving your work, and then eventually you'll get an error message and get kicked out. And when you go back in, none of the work that you've done will have been saved. And so that is that. I say start early with your application and save often. I find that those are valid tips for working in the e-procurement environment. So now you can submit your application in e-procurement and later amend it up until the due date. You can't amend it past the due date, but up until that due date, you can work, save, submit, and then draw that, and then resubmit, amend your application as many times as you want. If that gives you an extra peace of mind. And I can't stress this enough in terms of avoiding the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early. Plan on your submission process, and you'll see this in later slides, taking 30 to 60 minutes. Understand that you are one of a pool of applicants, that we have some technical assistance capacity here between myself, program people, the people at the e-procurement helpline, but that there's not an infinite number of people. And so if everybody's calling at 11:50 to have a problem resolved, that means that somebody is probably not going to be get as in-depth an answer as perhaps they would like. As I said before, late applications will not be accepted. Please make use of the e-procurement hotline for help, and understand, though, that that helpline operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So if you are, this application, let's see, is due on a Friday. If you are starting it on a Saturday or a Sunday and you run into problems, no one you can call, you can leave messages, and I highly encourage you to do so, but nobody's going to respond to your call until Monday at 9. Again, save often and submit early. There's plenty of personal technical assistance, however, that's available to you 24/7. There's training materials in the form of documents and videos on the City of Chicago website with DFSS Supplier online training materials. The stuff for delegate agencies and delegate agency contracting processes are specifically germane to this RFP. There is, again, the customer support. You can email customer support. You can call the helpline. You can email me, and my phone number and address are both in the RFP document, but also at the end of this webinar. And we will try to help you as best we can to make sure that you get all the things that you need to make a good application. If you have programmatic questions, and that includes budget questions, you really need to reach out to Mark because he is the program person. He's going to be the best person to give questions to about anything that has to do with programs. So I do get a certain number of questions about like this, that, or, can I do this with the budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to refer those questions to Mark because he's the program person. If you're having, I can't get into my e-procurement account, or I'm having a hard time submitting, or what does this error message mean? Those are questions that you want to ask. So if you are a new agency, just a heads up, as part of the application process to getting an iSupplier account, you are going to have articles of incorporation, your IRS affirmation letter for not-for-profit organizations, your DUNS number, your CCR number, and a certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois. Those are all things that you're going to need to sort of start. I don't actually think that you need a certificate of good standing letter to get an account, an iSupplier account. But you will definitely should have, your PIN number, your article incorporation, stuff like that, ready to be uploaded as part of just the initial application. Certainly, all of these 5 things are needed before you can enter into a contract with anybody. So it's good just to understand, you can start collecting those documents now or figuring out where they can be filed. So now we're going to talk about the 2 kind of standard processes that everybody does as part of their e-procurement submission process, the experience. One is how to accept an amendment. The city or DFSS does an amendment mostly to alert people to dramatic changes or really any change in the RFP, but also to give you additional information. So, for instance, all the questions that you're asking now as part of this webinar, all the questions that we receive via email and phone call up until Monday, close of business, or 11:59. Those are all questions that are going to be formulated into an amendment document with their answers. And then those questions and answers will be posted on the e-procurement website with, under this RFP. This webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the PowerPoint slides and the webinar are going to be posted on the DFSS website under the funding opportunity that relates to, the domestic work relief funding opportunity. Also in the alert section. So that's where you can access this information later. So we're going to do an amendment, and you can't actually start an application or continue with an application that you have started without accepting that amendment. The process of accepting the amendment if you've already started an application, pulls the information that you have into the amended RFP. And so this is the process that you will need to engage in to have that happen and ultimately to make a successful application for really any program. So in this screen, you're going to see this, the RFP has been amended. In order to start an application, you're going to need to acknowledge and accept the amendment first. So you're going to see this thing in bright blue says view amendment history. The amendment history, you're going to click on that. You can see the amendment history. And then you're going to, if you have not already started, you're going to hit this create quote on the right-hand side and hit the go button. And that's going to take you to this screen, which is going to help. You're going to now enter into the acceptance and acknowledgement process. You're going to open the RFP. You can open this RFP with circled 1. You'll see all the attachments, the amendment document being one of them. You'll see in this middle column here, there's an amendment description, which is a little one-sentence thing that sort of says what the amendment's about. Well, like, we're extending the deadline, or these are the questions and answers, or here's information about the advance policy, or any number, whatever it is that we need to communicate via the amendment. To review the changes or just look at the amendment itself, as opposed to everything else, you could click on this review change little infinity or eyeglass icon. And then when you've reviewed all of the amendment materials that you need to review, you're going to hit this acknowledge amendments button. It's either on the upper or left, lower right-hand side. So when you acknowledge the amendment, you get this screen where you are accepting the terms and conditions of the RFQ and acknowledging the changes made to the RFQ amendment document. So you're going to click this very small button, and then you're going to hit the acknowledge button again to acknowledge that you have made, that you've reviewed, and that you're willing to be, that you are going to be held responsible for the information. After that, you're going to get a confirmation, which you're going to acknowledge the confirmation. Then you'll hit yes. And from there, you're going to get a final screen where you accept the terms and conditions. So you'll hit a very small button down here on the lower left, and then you go and you hit your accept buttons on the upper or lower right-hand side. And by accepting acknowledging and accepting this final screen, you have accepted the amendment, and you will then go on to either starting your application or a continuation of the application. So now here we're going to go into how to submit an application. As I mentioned in previous screens, I tell people, please try to submit a day early. Expect that this is going to take 30 to 60 minutes at least. If you're a new person, I actually had a person recently who they really used that amendment process, or not the ability for them to submit early and then amend their application. They used that process as sort of a way to pre-submit and get familiar with the submission process. So I saw that, that they literally submitted their application like 4 times. And it was, I was talking to them about some other matter. I was like, hey, you've submitted a lot. And they're like, yeah, I'm new here. And this was a great way to kind of get up to speed on the submission process and get comfortable. And thought that was actually a really great use of that particular function. This application, especially if you're new to the system, it can really take a lot longer than you think it, definitely more than you want it to, and certainly longer than you think it might. I don't recommend leaving it to the last minute. I've seen too many people not make applications because they get caught up on some of this stuff. So you're going to be done with your application. You're ready to submit. You're going to start by saving your draft one last time, and then you're going to click continue. And when you click continue, the e-procurement system is going to go kind of scan your application and see if it sees any kind of glaring errors. And then you'll get a pile, or just maybe one, error message on the top upper left-hand corner there. So don't be alarmed if you get more than one. It's very common. And we're just going to go through 2 of the most common error messages that people mostly experience. So this is the error message that you must quote at least one line in the RFQ. You'll see here the lines is a function that we actually don't really use in procurement at this point in your procurement experience in the RFP or the RFQ stage. You don't use the lines, but the system does want you to put placeholder numbers into that lines tab. So you'll see here right below this error, you'll see the little lines thing, and then you click on that. You put a placeholder number. You can put the number that you are from your budget, but we're not going to look at the lines. We only look at the budget that you submit, the Excel spreadsheet budget that you submit and upload. That is the budget that we're going to look at. That's the budget that we're going to use for an evaluation. But the system requires that you put these lines in as placeholders. And so anything but 0, put your favorite number in, and then, you know, when you hit the submit button again, it will be scanned and that error message should go away. Another very common error message that people get are this: a quote value is required for requirement first name or requirement whatever. Each question is referred to as a requirement. The answer is referred to as a quote value. As we talked before, those quote values have a limit of 4,000 characters. The system is not going to count those characters for you. It will just cut you off. So, and also when you submit, that your application gets sort of sucked away to us, and you can't access it again. I can show you during the application period, you do have the opportunity to download it as a PDF. But if you want to have it in a Word document, or, you know, whatever your word processing preference is, keep it in that document. Do your counts there to make sure that you're not over the 4,000 character limit. So probably, and then cut and paste your quote values or your answers into the different application questions or requirements. In this case, the error is going to say a quote value is required for the requirement first name. So in this case, what it is that each question kind of has a title to it. In this case, the person did not put in the first name, and so this would, the system's merely being saying, like, it's a required field, you didn't answer it, please answer it. So those are the two sort of most common error messages people get. And then here we go. So after your application is free from errors, you're going to proceed and be able to proceed and submit. And at this point, when you click continue, you're going to put the application into the review and submit phase. You can see here on the upper right-hand side, there's a printable view. If you hit that, you're going to get that PDF I was talking about, that you'll get a PDF copy of the whole application. And I highlight, if you want to have a copy of that, but this is the time is now to do that, right? So the review and submit phase is basically going to give you, and then you're going to be able to just scroll down and through all of your applications. So you would see, like, your attachments, any attachments that you have will be under this attachment thing, and you're just going to keep scrolling, and you're going to see all of your questions and the answers. So if you need to go back and edit, this is the time to do it. And when you get down to the bottom of your application, you're going to see a place for your electronic signature. You're going to put in your name and your title first, and then you're going to click the box. If you click the box first, you get an error message saying to put in your name and your title first. And then you're going to, I couldn't put it on one slide, but then on the right-hand side of that electronic signature aspect, you're going to hit the submit button. And when you hit submit, you should get this confirmation screen. The e-procurement system will send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. It ends up in a lot of people's junk mail. If you want confirmation prior to that, which is perfectly understandable, please don't hesitate to call or email me, and I am more than happy to confirm that you have received your application. I can see who's applied pretty much the second they hit submit. And it is not at all a problem for me to confirm that for you. People work very hard on our applications. I really appreciate all the work that they do. And it is really my pleasure to be able to give you that sense of, like, yeah, you did actually submit. That concludes everything I have to say about the e-procurement system. We're now going to open it up for more questions if there are any. And here's our contact information. So if you have program questions, and that includes questions about the budget, you're going to contact Mark. For non-programmatic and more administrative stuff, you can contact me, call or email. Either is fine. So let's just open it up right now for questions. And I want to just also take this time to thank everybody for showing up to this RFP webinar. And we really are looking forward to seeing your applications and working with them, at least one. So it looks like we had some good questions while I was talking, or perhaps things have been resolved, or people got their answers. But yeah, are there any other questions, or was there anything that Elisa or Chris or Mark that you would like to comment or update?
Yeah, so there was a question continued discussion around the NDWA technology. So I think this was helpful to me, if I understood correctly. In the RFP narrative implies that a kind of either or, so either some kind of proprietary or in-house or existing platform that could be adapted for the purpose of this program, or use of NDWA's open source technology. And from what I'm understanding from the question, the clarification in the question box is that, and I see in the application questions, it says also discussed how any platform will be able to interface or directly use the open source technology, which would imply both. So the response I put for now is that we'll need to clarify this in the amendments. I can see how that would be confusing if that's what this asker's point was, which is what I'm understanding. Yes, I see it. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, then I'm seeing what they're seeing, and clarify that. That's all I have.
A minute or two here, and then if everybody is all questioned out, I'll let you go back to your day as regularly scheduled. Perfect. Perfect. Yes, Ms. Davis, this is being recorded, and all the PowerPoint slides and the link to the YouTube posted recording will be available probably by Monday and posted to the DFSS website. That's where you can access it. If that is the last question, I want to thank all of you very much for your attendance. We really look forward to reading your applications. Would anybody like to add anything?
Oh, thank you, and I'm looking forward to reading the responses as well.
Enjoy your Friday afternoon and have a lovely weekend. And we will be reading your stuff hopefully on March 11th. Take care.